Salvē, amici, welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 6, verses 5 through 7. But first, our single page of last time in John chapter 6. Here is our rubric. Let's go ahead and get started. Cum sub levaset ergo oculos Jesus et vidisset quia multitudo maxima venit ad eum. Dicit ad Philippum, unde ememus panes ut manducant hei. Hoc autem dicebat temptans eum, ipse enim sciebat quid esset facturos. Respondet ei Philippus, ducentorum denariorum panes non sufficiunt eis, ut unus quisque modicum quid accipiat. Sorry about that last mix-up. So we take a look at the beginning of verse 5. We notice cum, but there's no noun or adjective after it. Instead, we have a verb. And note the pluperfect infinitive right before our third person singular ending, which then tells us that this is going to be a pluperfect subjunctive form, and it is active. And with a cum, then we know that we have the three possible clauses. We have the circumstantial, the causal, or can't remember the third one, but that's when you would translate it, although. In this case, I think we have a circumstantial, and this means to raise up. So no, we got the word level for levitate, and then sub, so to levitate up. Ergo, therefore, oculos as the direct object with that os for an accusative, plural, masculine, and then Jesus as our subject. Et vidisset, we've got another exact replication of this. So I'm just going to draw that over, and then that tells us with this conjunction that we should take this as the same type of clause. So we've got another circumstantial. So when under the circumstances, therefore Jesus had raised up eyes, we would say his eyes, and when he had seen, and then we enter a quia clause with multitudo in the nominative form. Note that maxima is modifying multitudo. There's nothing for it to modify otherwise. Ad eum in the prepositional phrase is the wrong form. Dicit starts a new clause, so it can't go any further than that. And then when it is also a verb. So then maxima with that a tells us that this noun here, a third declension, is feminine. Nominative, singular, feminine. And then when it, from venio, venire, we can't really tell what tense it is because this is the same appearance without the macrons in the present and the perfect, but from the Greek we have a present erketai, so that I'm going to treat this as present, not as perfect. Then moving on into the next clause, dicit from dico, dicere. Since we have the I here, we know this is the present stem, easy to parse. I'm not going to bother with that. Odd prepositional phrase, unde can't be a part of it since it is an adverb. So then Philippum closes our prepositional phrase with the um, and especially because we have the preposition ad, we know that this, again, just like the previous one, is plus accusative, singular, masculine. And then real quick note, Philip is a Greek word. We've got, why did I put the line there? That doesn't make any sense. Phil, the line should go right there, and right there. You would have a final vowel for the first half of his name, which then gets elided into this I here of the second half of his name, and it's just from the Greek philos, to love, and then hippos, which is horse, so horse lover. And unde, ememus, unde needs to start the next clause, and since ememus with that mus is a first person plural, then this tells us that this is the direct speech. This is the thing that Jesus is saying. So I'm going to add quote marks right there and right there. This comes from emo, emere. It is a third conjugation. So this e is either a future tense or it is the present subjunctive. Since we have unde, which is introducing a question, the subjunctive makes more sense. But I'm going to write both of them down and just circle the present subjunctive. And then emo means to buy. And we have to have a direct object for that, which we find here with panes. The es is going to be a nominative or accusative plural. We already have our subject and the verb, so this can only be the accusative plural. And then bread is masculine. Ut is a new clause here showing purpose. And mandu kent, we should expect a subjunctive. Mandu ko is another third conjugation. So this E is again either a present active subjunctive or a future active indicative. With the ut, we want the subjunctive, not the future, so I'm going to do the same thing as above. And this means to chew, classically, but in the New Testament, it instead means to eat. I think, yeah, we've run into this before, and I may have initially gone with the classical translation, which just doesn't fit. I think it was the disciples coming up to Jesus and saying, Lord, have you not... No, it's Lord, take something to snack upon, but not quite right. It's to eat in biblical Latin anyway. And then hii, this is from hic, haec, hoc. So, with the double I, that's going to be nominative plural, masculine generic, masculine common. Note that it doesn't have to be two I's. The two I's can elide together since since one's long, and you don't really want two I's to appear in Latin typically. Typically is the wrong word. I use that word too much. But you will see it as we have before in verbs where it goes into the perfect tense, and then you get ii or ivi. Iwi is a little bit easier to say, but sometimes the double I does appear, as it has here. Then moving on into verse 6, hoc autem dicebat, since we've got the third person now form of the verb, this tells us that Jesus is done speaking. We can close these quotes here. It is active and indicative. Hoc refers back to what he was saying, and hence it being the neuter, accusative as direct object, singular, neuter, standing in for a concept rather than a physical object. Now this, he was saying, temptans, so note we have the ns there, which tells us that this is a participial form. This comes from tempto, temptare. We know temptare because of this a, and it doesn't have a standard verbal ending. Instead, as I said, it's got the participial endings. So the the linking vowel has to be the stem, the same as the stem vowel. So then that's going to be an a, ns for nominative, singular, masculine, referring back to Jesus. This is a verb, so it is a present stem, present tense, active participle. And it looks like it means tempting, and that is sometimes how it is used. However, if we take a look at the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation. God tempts no one, also in the Bible, which means that we've got a translation error there in English. You can't, since we know that God tempts no one, and then we have here Jesus using this verb, what must then be going on is the meaning must not be like tempt to sin, but instead test, which is another option for this word. We've also got tentatio, which is testing in Latin. So eum, accusative, singular, masculine because of the um. And then ipse, this is the pronoun referring back to the subject for nominative, singular, masculine. So it's still Jesus. For NM, post-positive, telling us that this is in fact a new clause, so I'm going to put a comma there. For he himself, skiebat, same form as dikebat, so I'm not going to bother parsing that. Was knowing, or he, I forget what the deeper down, less used imperfect translations are, but he was knowing, or he was continuing to know, what, quid, qui, quae, quod, accusative, singular, neuter as the direct object of skiebat, esset, and then facturas. Esset is from sum esse fui. Since we've got the infinitive, this tells us that this is the imperfect subjunctive with the personal ending, third person, singular, imperfect, active, subjunctive. And this is an indirect question with quid. Note that most of the time, an indirect question that is introduced by a relative pronoun at all is going to be introduced by quid. Occasionally it will be introduced by quod. In this case it's the correct form, and it will always take a subjunctive, except when it doesn't. You know how languages work like that. So For he was knowing what he was being, if it were standing alone, but that doesn't make much sense. Instead, we take a look at facturus. Note immediately the UR we have there for, which I should do this correctly. Not doing it correctly. I'm going to put a star, and we'll write it down here. You are in future. You are in this form. We have the future active participle. So with US, nominative, singular, masculine, you are tells us future, active as I've already said, and then participle. So he was already knowing what he was, then with a future participle, going to be doing, because we got facto from facio, facere, feci, facto. As I was writing it down, I remembered emphatic. Emphatic is another option for the imperfect, and that one I think makes sense. So he knew, and you would want to put a lot of stress on the new, so underline. Into 7, respondet a, respondo, respondere, responsi, same form in the present and in the perfect. So we need to take a look at the Greek, and we've got apokrithe, and I think that is aorist, so then the perfect is probably correct there. A, dative singular masculine from is, id, Philippus, US, our subject, and then we get into what he says. Ducentorum, note the O-R-U-M for genitive plural. So this would be, since this is a number, we got ducent, do, the first part of it, so for 2, and then kent for 100, which fits with the diakos of the Greek, dia to kos, 100. So then that's probably going to be neuter. I didn't think to look that up. And then denariorum, O-R-U-M, denarius. Denarius in Greek is neuter, and ducentorum appears to be modifying denarius. So but wait. Denarius is masculine, though, in Latin because it ends in the US, not in denarion, like in the Greek. So no, this is wrong. It's going to be masculine. This is denarius. And then panes, es again, accusative or nominative, plural, masculine. Is it the object or the subject? We don't have a verb yet until we get to sufficiunt. We've got the unt. U tells us that this is the present, third person plural. It is active and it is indicative. This needs a plural subject, which we just so happen to have with panes. Nothing else so far fits. Can't be Philip because he is the one that's doing the responding. He's outside of this clause. And then ut starts a new clause. Eis as the dative or ablative, plural, common, also can't be it. So then it's got to be nominative, not accusative, as our subject. And sufficio means what it looks like, it's sufficient. And then why are these genitive? Well, this is the genitive of price. Bread worth 200 denarius is not sufficient for them. Ut unus quisque, we take from the first part of this verb our case, number, and gender. So since it's US, it's going to be nominative, singular, masculine, and quis matches it with the is. Otherwise, it would have to be quid if it were udum quidque. For feminine, it'd have to be una quisque, because quis is a two termination. So that, what is it? I think each, because the Greek uses each. Hekastos is the word there. But yeah, each or any one of them maybe. Modicum, for with accipiat as the verb. This is the subject already. Accusative, singular. I don't think modicus is a form. I'm pretty sure that this is neuter as well. and this is like a morsel, a tiny bit. And so that each one, accipio, accipere. So with the A, it's got to be a subjunctive, third person, singular, present stem, active, may have, and then quid. This could be from aliquis, alique, not alique, aliquis, aliquid. So otherwise, what is it doing there? Well, part of what it's doing there is we have another another word in the Greek that corresponds to it, and that would be T, even though T does not appear to be strictly necessary, because already in the Greek we've got the same thing. We've got the equivalent of modicum, braku. But instead, for whatever reason, and I don't even know exactly why, accipiat wants quid to be there. And this is going to be accusative, singular, neuter. It's the direct object of the verb with modicum as well. There's our translation. Let's go ahead and take a look at it in its own context. When therefore Jesus had lifted up eyes, and when he had seen that a great multitude is coming to him, he says to Philip, "Whence may we buy loaves so that these may eat?" Now he was saying this, testing him, for he himself was knowing what he was going to be doing. Philip answered him, "Loaves worth 200 denarii are not sufficient for them, so that each may have a morsel, or so that each may have what morsel there is." Thank you very much for watching. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good